Welcome to the Living Artist Podcast. I'm your host, Preston M. Smith. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Living Artist Podcast. I'm Preston M. Smith, at PMS Artwork everywhere on internet land and socials. I want to thank you for landing on this podcast. Whether you're a professional artist, just getting started in the art world, a collector of art, or just consider yourself a creative person, this podcast has something for you. I like to think of it as a fun way to rant and talk to other creative people about living the life of an artist, surviving and getting ahead in the art world, and enjoying your life. But most importantly, not waiting until you're dead to make it happen. All right, let's get started.
This episode is brought to you by Bumble. So, you want to find someone you're compatible with, specifically someone who's ready for a serious connection, totally open to having kids in the future, is a tall, rock-climbing Libra, and loves rom-coms with vegan pizzas on Tuesdays just as much as you do. Bumble knows that you know exactly what's right for you. So whatever it is you're looking for, Bumble's features can help you find it. Date now on Bumble.
All right, I'm up. Time to start the morning routine.
Yes, indeed. That's how I start my day every day. Not. Now, if I started my day like that every day, I would start it off with a panic attack. But I thought I would use that as a way to start this episode, which is, yes, you guessed it, all about daily routines. Because I always ask my guests, what's your daily routine? Do you have any daily routines that you do that kind of set you off for a good day or, get you most productive? And I have a lot of people who ask me what I do, like what are my daily routines, or say, you're so productive. How do you do it? What's going on? So I thought I would take this episode to talk about my daily routines. And for some of you, you might be like, I don't need a daily routine. Well, you can feel free to skip this podcast if you want. But for the rest of you who are looking for some tips and tricks or some, detailed suggestions on how to be productive in your day, if you're a full-time artist, you're trying to be a full-time artist, or you're trying to squeeze in some stuff with your day job, that's fine. This will be probably useful for you. You can take some of the things I'm talking about and use them or disregard them. But I'm going to start from the beginning and walk you through a typical day in the life of Preston Smith, aka PMS Artwork. So here we go. So first of all, I want to start by saying that I really believe that health and wellness and daily routines and self-care are all inextricably tied to being successful as an artist, especially long-term. You can get away with a lot of stuff when you're younger, just kind of going, all out and burning the candles at both ends and going like full steam, full throttle all the time. And that might work for you for a while. But at some point, as you get a bit older and even as some of the spirit wanes, the form appears, as Bukowski says. It's one of those things where, you have to rely on some of these routines and some of these habits and some of these health tips to keep you going and keep you excited and keep you energized. Because if you want to have a long career in the art world or, be successful really in any genre, any form of work that you do, you're going to want to be paying attention to some of these things because you want to be firing on all cylinders. So anyway, let's get going. I start off early in the morning. I get up at about 6:20 or 6:30 with my wife. And I just use that time because she commutes to work. She goes down to UCLA. And I use that time while she's getting ready to go to work and then commuting to work to be like my me time, getting started time, which is I get up, I see her off, and then I come in, I start to prepare my mate. I take certain supplementation that I take in the morning. I do intermittent fast every day, which is typically about a 14-hour window. But I know that protein synthesis is very important all the time. You don't want to be, losing that too much and have too big of a window because you will lose muscle. And muscle is our metabolic currency, as Dr. Gabriel Lyons says. So I take some aminos, which don't break your fast. There's no calories in them. But I take some branched chain amino acids, which are like 9 amino acids, which kind of get the protein synthesis going, and they don't break my fast. I make some mate, mate. I will take some glutathione, which is like a good antioxidant because I'm still trying to detox and get my body working well with my chronic pain and stuff like that. Then I will get going while I'm starting all that stuff off. I will either get outside and try to get some first sunlight because it resets your circadian rhythm, which is so important. And getting first light is very important because it doesn't get those UV rays, but you can also get that blue light into your eyes and it resets your circadian rhythm, which helps with dopamine and melatonin production later on in the day. So I get that going and I will try to stand out there. If you can ground on top of this, that's another way to kind of supercharge this, which is basically standing bare feet on the ground, on the soil, whether that's grass or dirt, to recharge your body and kind of ground yourself while you're getting some first sun and then getting some breath work in. I will do my breathing. I will do either like my own breath work that I've worked with on the podcast before, which is a series of inhales for 7, holds for 28, and then exhales for 14. It's like increments of 7 that I've developed that I do 10 of those, and that really gets me going, gets me centered. But nowadays I do my other ship breathing exercises. I do my kind of lovely day start out. I get my head top, check my nails. Baby, how you feel? Feeling good as hell. So that's the song that's in Other Ship. They do a little mashup of that and Lovely Day by Bill Withers. It's pretty funny. But anyway, it does get you going, gets you jazzed. It's like Wim Hof breathing almost, where there's some holds in between, but you really get highly oxygenated and it just gets you going for the day. You really don't even need caffeine after that, but I do like to do caffeine. So anyway, I will do that in some sun. I will either sit outside on a chair or on a bench, or I will ground and I will get the sun and I'll do some breathing, or I will, if it's a really cloudy day or it's a rainy day, I do have a red light panel that I purchased a while ago. It was a big investment, but I did it for my chronic pain, and I use that as much as possible for rehab, and it also does a lot for your cells and cellular energy, and it can kind of replace sunlight, so I will sit in front of the red light panel if I don't get sun. And that's a kind of a good biohack that you can use. And it's just good for your body, your cells, for nitric oxide production, for all these things. So it's a little bit of a biohacking thing that I do. And by the time I'm done with that, it is about the normal time to start the day. So I'm feeling really centered. I'm feeling energized. I'm feeling ready to go. So then I will start doing my desk work. I will back up for a second though. If you can do some, high intensity training or some exercise in the beginning of the day, that's great too. I used to do that every day for probably about 15 to 20 years. I would run in the morning. First thing in the morning, I would get out of bed and I would go for a really intense run, like a 2-mile run as fast as I could basically. And that would get my energy going and get me centered in a way. But I stopped doing that for a while because of my chronic pain. I didn't want to get myself in too much of a excited fight or flight state early in the morning, because it can stress your body out if you are in a little bit of like a toxic overload. So I started doing these other things instead, getting the first sun, getting the air, getting the light, getting the breath going and centering myself. And then I do my exercise later in the day. So we'll get to that. But I thought that's important to start back, because if you are a person who really relies on exercise, doing it first thing in the morning, preferably in a fasted state, is great for you to get started. So, okay, moving on. Then I get to my desk work. I bring my mate, my freshly made yerba mate, which is my drink of choice from Argentina. My wife turned me on to that. It's wonderful. Gets you caffeine, but it kind of like drips it out slowly. It does give you a good buzz, but it's also really healthy. It has a lot of antioxidants. So I will do the mate and I'll get going on my work. If I have a new painting, which I do most days of the week, I will go out to the studio and I will take pictures of it as close to that first light as possible. So I got that blue light. I don't get that, light directly on the piece. I'll take the pictures with a light kind of from the side. And I'll take it with my iPhone now, because I have a good iPhone. I used to use a really, good camera for this, but you can get away with it with iPhones now. So I'll take a bunch of pictures and then I will come in, I will put those on my computer. I will start working on my Photoshop. I'll get to a place where I have a good 20 to 30 pictures of my piece or pieces, whatever I'm doing. If it's a diptych or a triptych, or if it's just a individual piece, I will get really good pictures of that and, color correct them, make sure that they're all clear, cropped, and of a good size. And then, because it's really important to get your pieces as accurate as possible. You don't want somebody looking at a piece and going like, oh, this looks amazing. Then they get it in person and the colors are all off, or it just doesn't represent you very well as an artist. So I try to get it as close to what you'd see in person as possible. And then I will do my in-situation pictures, which I have a kind of a stockpile. I get this question a lot, like, oh, what app do you use? I don't use an app. I do all of my stuff by hand and myself on Photoshop. That's a skill that I taught myself a long time ago, and I got kind of enhanced by my wife, who's a whiz on Photoshop as well. But I will do my in-situation pictures on kind of a stock of pictures that I have over the years that I've compiled, either pictures of places that I've lived or pictures that I've taken off the internet, a combination of those. And then I will put those into those pictures so it looks like it's hanging above a couch or above a fireplace or whatever, so people can visualize it in their homes. And once again, very important to make sure you have an eye for size, because you don't want this piece to look like 10 times or 2 times or 3 times as big as it is or smaller than it is. You want it to look as accurate as possible. That's the main thing. You're trying to really develop a relationship with your collector. So if you're selling your work online, you want it to look as accurate to the color as possible, as accurate to the size as possible, and as accurate to like the texture and the sharpness and the vibrancy of color. All those things need to be really on point. So I do that on Photoshop. Takes me a little while to get that going. Probably the first hour of my day is that. And then I will transition into putting this work online. So over the years, I have developed a lot of, relationships with different online art marketplaces that I sell really well with, like in the hundreds, probably about 500 to 600 paintings that I've sold online with these different art marketplaces. And I will go up like Art Finder, Art Majour, Zatista, Singulart, Saatchi, a bunch of places like this. And then through the galleries I'm represented by, or the gallery I'm represented by, Shockbox, through Artsy or First Dibs, I will get my stuff up online with these places so it's viewed by the masses. So I want to make sure that they are, like I said, as professional as possible. I have like a little bit of a format that I use or a template that I use for my descriptions, because when you're starting out, it takes a lot of time to develop your voice and what your descriptions are going to be like, how you're going to describe your art to the potential collectors that are out there. So I've worked on that for a long time. Don't do something where you steal or copy and paste or plagiarize other artists. That is highly frowned upon, but that's for another podcast. Try to develop your own voice and something that really speaks to your style and to your own voice, because people will start to recognize even that, the way you describe your work, and it'll become like a little bit of a calling card for you. As will like your picture taking. If you're good at taking quality pictures, or you have a unique way of taking pictures, I have a lot of little tricks that I've developed over the years that are very specific to me that people will go, oh, that's a Preston piece. You want that because it's a way of like marketing and kind of branding your work. So, for the collector, they can see that and go, oh yeah, that's a Preston piece that, I can recognize that right away. It's just like a little shortcut to seeing your work and identifying your work. So I do that. I put it up online. Each online marketplace is different as far as how many pictures they take, how many different angles they take, what their descriptions are like. So I have a format for each one of those. I will go and I will put it up on each one of those. I will share through those websites with their social media links. It's very important because all that stuff will track back, and you'll get into the algorithms, and people will start to recognize more of your work, or when they're searching for your work, you'll be attached to these art marketplaces, which will give you more visibility. So that's what I work on doing. It takes me a while to get up on all those. So let's say I'm going from 8 to 9 with my, photoshopping and my taking pictures and getting all my in-situation pictures. I go from about 9 to 11, so about 2 hours every day of putting the stuff up online to all these different art marketplaces, including my website, which is extremely important because, like I said, your website is really what you have the most control of and what you get the highest percentage of a sale. So I will also put it up on my website, and then it's time to kind of switch gears and do some social media. If I have some time, I will do my social media immediately after that. I'll hit Instagram. I'll hit maybe Facebook. Most of the time I just share to Facebook. I don't spend a lot of time on Facebook anymore. That seems to be more of a thing where it's for like friends and family. But for Instagram or even TikTok, I don't do much of TikTok, but I primarily focus on Instagram. And I will go up and I will do my stories, and I'll do my unique stories, and I'll do my unique posts, which I have my own style on all these things too, so you can recognize them easily online if you're on Instagram. I would highly recommend to check out my Instagram at PMS Artwork, and you can kind of get an idea for that. You'll start to see like, oh, he does these kind of stories and these types of reels. He's got this editing style, or he uses these kind of AI, enhancements, and then this is how he describes his stuff. These are the hashtags he uses, blah, blah, blah. That's something that I do that I've kind of honed over the years too. So the next, half an hour, let's say, is 20 minutes to half an hour is putting stuff up on Instagram, which can be as fun as you make it. And I find it's so much better for your mental health if you do Instagram or social media after you've put some of your work up. Because I think if you just get up and you like haven't done these things to center yourself and you get on Instagram, you start seeing what other people are doing, you start your day off kind of feeling like shit, feeling like, oh my God, what am I doing? Look at what everybody else is doing. And you just start off kind of in a funk. So I will wait to do my social media until I've actually put something out into the world. Now, if it's a day that I'm releasing a podcast, I will also wait till after I put my podcast out, which is on Tuesdays. I'm sure if you follow this podcast, you know that Tuesday mornings, and then I kind of promote the podcast on social media. It kind of takes the place of an artwork for that day. But, I won't do that until I have put something out or release something into the world, because then I feel like I've been productive, like I am showing something of myself out there that I'm proud of. And then I can go do my social media and I can go like other people's stuff and follow other people's stuff and, be encouraging to the people that I follow and that I want to promote as well. That way I'm doing it authentically. I'm doing it without feeling any resentment or jealousy for anybody else. That's really important. So I'll put the stuff out there and then I will do some social media. And then it's time to take the first food break. But before we talk about the first break, I do think it's important to just highlight that you want to be moving. You don't want to be sitting this whole time. You want to get up from time to time. Whatever, you have to use the bathroom, use that time to do some air squats or to get some legs up, do some high knees or whatever you do some jumping jacks. If you're sitting in your chair for a long time, you can do little calf raises in your chair or just kind of bounce in place, which gets your blood flowing because obviously we don't want to be sedentary. So just a quick little highlight before we move on. But so then I'll take my first, food break around 11:30, maybe sometimes noon if I have a heavy workload in the morning. It's all administrative really for most of the day because most people really have this misconception that artists are just in their studio painting all the time. And that would be wonderful. But the real deal is a lot of us are doing, some heavy administrative work and marketing. So we have to wear so many hats as artists nowadays to, get ahead. I mean, very few people have like a team of people doing everything for them, but most people have to be good at social media. They have to be good at marketing. They have to be good at administrative work. They have to be good at photography, have a basic understanding of photography and lighting and, Photoshop and things like that. So we're doing a lot of administrative work and a lot of that other work as well. So I start with my first meal. Typically, I'm going to focus. I'm not going to really talk about what specifically I eat because, diet is such a polarizing thing nowadays, but let's just say that I focus heavily on protein and I do lower on the carbs because I just find that works for me. People can do what they want, but I think the data really shows that high protein diets are really where it's at these days as far as longevity and as far as protein synthesis, what we use for so many different things in our body, so many different mechanisms. So I will highlight protein. I will try to get about 40 grams at least of protein in each meal. And some carbs, of course, because I do need some energy. Because immediately afterwards, I'm going to do some glucose sequestration with some movement. But, the thing is I always say start with something savory. This is something the glucose goddess talks about. And a lot of other people talk about. You can curb your anxiety and you can curb a lot of metabolic problems in your body by doing some movement after eating, and also by starting your first meal with something savory. That means something high protein. You're not going to want to start with a pastry or some cereal or something that's like high in the glycemic index or whatever. You're going to want to start with something savory. It's going to just make you feel good. It's going to set you up for like a much better day and a more energized day. So I do that. I eat pretty quickly, but I don't just scarf it down. I try to make sure I'm eating in kind of a present manner, mindfully. And I will go outside and I'll try to get some sun if I can, sit out in the sun, breathe some fresh air while I'm doing it, listen to a podcast or listen to some music, which I'm typically listening to throughout the day. And I just get a lot of good ideas that way. And it calms me down if I'm listening to music, but I will listen to a podcast while I'm eating out in the sun, maybe soak up 10 minutes of sun and eat the food. And then I come in and I do 10 minutes of exercise. So I immediately do that afterwards. I will do knees over toes, some backward stuff on the treadmill. I will do some walking or some high knees or some jogging in place or some heavy walking outside. And then, I will probably end with the vibration plate a little bit just to get the lymphatic drainage going and to just vibrate my cells a bit. That's something that I also invested in for my chronic pain, but I use every day, probably at least 5 minutes a day. And it just, it helps with all the, like I said, lymphatic drainage and the energy production of the cells, but it also helps with your balance and your proprioception and all the good mechanisms in the body. So I will end with a little bit of the vibration plate. And by the time I'm done with that, it's about 12, 13 minutes. And I feel like I've processed that glucose and I've gotten to a place where I'm not going to have any glucose spikes afterwards, because that used to feed into a lot of anxiety. So now that really keeps me centered after I eat. And the protein also helps with that. So I'll go from that into some painting. Typically, I will get out in the studio and I will paint for at least 2 hours. I try to get at least 2 hours in, whether that's creating a new piece or finishing a piece, or if I have to ship a piece, like I sell a piece, I typically sell, 4 or 6 pieces a month, and I will get out there and, package those up and do all the stuff that I have to do with that. We can talk about that another day. But sometimes even if I have a really intense packaging day, I will dip into some of the other things I'm doing, because every once in a while it'll take you a good 3 to 4 hours to package like a really difficult piece. Like if it's like an assemblage piece that has a lot of crazy corners and angles and things that are breakable, you really need to make sure it's protected. So I will take more time to do that on those days. But I will normally get into the studio for 2 hours or so a day, 2 to 3 hours, after lunch or I guess it's breakfast. It's a late breakfast, but I will get out there and do my thing. And that's the time that I really feel like I'm recharging my mind and my creativity. That's just centers me every day. If I feel like I'm getting too bogged down with administrative stuff or marketing stuff or that kind of crap, just getting out in the studio every day, it just reminds me of what I'm doing or why I'm doing what I'm doing. It's a way to kind of exercise any feelings or emotions I have, process things. It's like therapy for me, but it's also just a great way to, get in touch with my creativity. And I always feel so much better about myself and so centered after I have a new piece that I've created in the studio. So I will get out there and do that. And that's a great way to power me through the middle part of my day. And by the time I'm done with that, I'm feeling good. I come in. If it's been about at least 3 hours between the meal, I will have my second meal. And this one's a little bit lighter on the protein, but still protein-centric with a little bit of carbs. I try to get my carbs from, fresh fruit if I can. But then I'll do my 10-minute workout. Sometimes this will be a little bit of strength training. It can be kettlebell, or it can be on the rowing machine, or I can do some curls or some body weight push-ups, stuff like that, pull-ups, dead hangs, whatever you want to do, because strength training is also very important for your overall body, but also for longevity. So I will do that and get my 10 minutes in after that one. I know this sounds like a lot, but once you get used to working some of these things into your daily routines, you'll be like, how did I go without this? So just trust me, take some of these things, adopt a little bit at a time if you want. You can disregard anything I'm saying, but this is just what works for me personally. So I will do that. And then the last part of the day, which is about, from 3:30 to 5:30 or maybe 6 when my wife is coming home from work, that is my time to do miscellaneous stuff. Now, a lot of that is self-care, especially during this period when I was dealing with chronic pain. I had to switch from my go late afternoon stuff into self-care, but I still do prioritize like miscellaneous work. Like if I have to do something on social media, or I have to fix something on my website, or if I want to target a gallery, or if I have to answer some emails, or, whatever, reach out to something or finalize some details for a show or whatever it is, anything miscellaneous like that I have to do, I will try to fit into that next half hour to an hour. And then I have to make sure I prioritize downtime and self-care at the end of the day, because it's just what kind of calms me down going into the nighttime. So I will do my stretching. I'll do some rolling on a foam roller. I will do some breathing exercise. I'll do a second breathing exercise, but this one's a little bit more geared towards like coming down and self-reflection. There's a really good one I do on Othership, the app I was talking about. And it's like a 3-cycle one where you do box breathing, 5 in, 5 hold, 5 out. You do 3 rounds of that, and then you have a 45-second hold in between where you think about how you showed up today for yourself, for other people, how you can show up better the next day. It's just a really good way to center yourself and to kind of calm down into the night. And then I'll listen to some podcasts. I will do some movement, some other meditation if I need to, or some stretching, or for a while with the chronic pain, I was doing a lot of like self-massage and stuff like that too. Whatever you need to do to kind of calm yourself down. Sometimes you can do some vagal toning. You can, work on that. Lymphatic drainage is great too, but I do some vagal toning where I'm trying to massage the vagus nerve or do some harmonizing or some, some humming, some deep toning for the vocal cords, which really vibrates and calms down the vagus nerve, which runs from your brain down through all of your vital organs into your stomach, and then sends stuff from your stomach back up to your brain. So if you have a dysregulated system, I would highly recommend looking into like vagal toning and stimulating the vagus nerve. So that's kind of it. And during that time, I can kind of process, what I did for the day. And I come up with a lot of ideas for paintings and for marketing and for things that I've got to do down the road, or things that I want to do down the road, things for the podcast, interviews for the podcast, ideas I've got coming up for, how I want to take my career to the next level, or, how I want to reach out to different people that I haven't reached out to make some connections. So it's just a great time for self-care, to think and to kind of wind down for the day. And then, I'll start cooking some food, and I try to have some food ready for my wife and I when she gets home. And when my wife gets home, that's it. I used to be like, whatever I had to do, if I had to paint at night or if I had to do extra work at night, I used to do it. But I really prioritize now time with my wife and just enjoying that, because we both have such a long day. It's really important to unplug. We eat some dinner together. We'll do our movement together after the meal, and then we'll just like watch a show or a movie for the last 2 hours of the day, and we'll talk and we'll laugh and we'll really just try to be present for each other. And then it's time to go to bed, And I've got other hacks, you can wear blue light blockers at night to help with your melatonin and stuff like that. There's a lot of other things I can talk about for the night, but maybe I'll save that for another podcast. And these things you'll see as your sleep improves with all these things that you're doing, your day improves. As you develop some of these other daily routines as far as eating habits, breathing habits, exercise habits, stuff like that, little biohacks, your energy improves. And I think you just become a better artist. I think you become a better artist and a better business person if you consider yourself that. Hopefully this has been helpful. I know it was a lot. I tried to get through it and power through it as fast as I could. Need to come up for air here in a minute. But if you have any questions, feel free to reach out on social media. I've got more stuff that I probably forgot and left out, and more little tips and tricks that I do in the like biohacking and, the strength training and the mindfulness, meditation, breath work, and supplementation world. All those worlds, they're very important to me on top of the art world. And I think they all are synergistic and they just go hand in hand and enhance each other. Yeah, hopefully you got something out of this. Hopefully you got a couple nuggets out there that you can apply to your life, and look forward to bringing you a new episode next week. Thanks for listening, everybody. Bye-bye.
Productive day. Now it's time for some vagal toning. Forget about it. Who can remember all this crap?
This has been the Living Artist Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. I just want you to know that I appreciate you being here, and I'm grateful to be in your ears. Your art and creative life on this planet is meaningful, so thank you for sharing it with me. If you like this podcast, whatever platform you're listening to it on, please subscribe and share it with your friends. You can also leave me a positive review to show your support. This helps me to reach more people with the algorithmic magic and keep the show going strong. If you want to see more of what I do and check out the art that I create, you can visit my website at www.pmsartwork.com or follow me on social media everywhere at PMS Artwork. That's it for now. See you back here next time.